There is an increasing interest by some companies and some countries in starting to do seabed mining for commercial purposes. However, I don't think we're ready.
Okay.
I don't think we're ready in many fronts. We're not ready in regulatory terms. We're not ready in environmental terms. We're not ready in scientific terms. We're not perhaps even ready in technological terms.
Hello, this is the Weekly Tradecast, the podcast brought to you by UNCTAD and Development. I'm Sarah Toms. We're exploring how major events are shaping trade and development and how that affects billions of people around the world. This week, we're looking at deep-sea mining and the debate over its environmental benefits and consequences. With the effects of climate change being felt around the world, the need to move away from fossil fuels is becoming more urgent. Greener technologies will help to cut energy emissions, but making the new batteries and other green devices require critical minerals such as cobalt, lithium, and manganese. These minerals are concentrated in a few countries, increasing the risk to supplies. But there is another way to get them, from the ocean floor. Proponents say that deep-sea mining causes less damage than on land and opens up supplies of critical minerals. Opponents say it would damage the environment and endanger the marine ecosystem. Well, joining me now to learn more about the deep-sea debate is David Vivas. David is a legal officer at UNCTAD and Development, working in trade, environment, climate change, and sustainable development himself. He's so committed to protecting the environment that he has converted his entire home to solar energy. Well, welcome back to the show, David. Now, before we plunge into this debate, give us an overview of the critical minerals that are now being mined and the green technologies that we actually need them for.
Thank you. It's a pleasure always to be here. There are several so-called critical minerals that are needed to push and move forward into a just energy transition. As you mentioned, that include lithium, cobalt, copper, nickel, silver, rare earth elements, manganese, etc. Those are needed for all the devices that could assist in generating renewable energy, including solar panels, windmill, batteries, grid connections, etc. But these are also needed for the digital revolution, for the digital economy, including communication devices, computers, smartphones, satellites, etc. So there is a huge increase in demand for these minerals today in order to be able to respond to the green transition, but also to the digitalization of the economy. That is also important to use less natural resources. Now, the question comes in the sense that the amount of minerals we have today available in land may be insufficient to cover the demand in the next 25 years, 30 years. According to UNCTAD, our own organization, we estimate that the demand will grow 1,500%, meaning 15 times more from now to 2050. So the question is if the supply of mines will be able to cope with the demand to enable that just energy transition. There are different arguments in favor and against seabed mining. It's a very controversial issue. The reason why many companies and some states seems to be interested is that the reserves we can find in the seabed can be very significant. Just to give you an example, in the Clairon-Clipperton zone in the Pacific, there could be more reserves of cobalt and nickel than in all land sources. So it's seen as a promising area. However, it's an activity that has not been tested commercially, and it can have very significant risk to the environment and marine life.
So, David, it's a very tricky balance then, isn't it? Given the imperative of the energy transition and the growing demand for these minerals, what do we do? Is it time to mine the seabed?
I think first there is an increasing interest by some companies and some countries in starting to do seabed mining for commercial purposes. However, I don't think we're ready. I don't think we're ready in many fronts. We're not ready in regulatory terms. We're not ready in environmental terms. We're not ready in scientific terms. We're not perhaps even ready in technological terms. So it seems to be incipient for the moment. But I think that there are two things. Seabed mining is not only linked to the green transition that has been mentioned as one of the motivations for that, but there is another motivation more known by everybody, which is income. Some companies and some countries would like to generate income through seabed mining. So there are other interests because you can also find significant metals and even diamonds in the seabed. So there is also commercial motivations beyond the one related to the green energy transition. There are also some small island states that may be interested in doing seabed mining or authorizing it within their continental shelf or in the high seas to get some income because they may have limited economic opportunities, could be tourism, fisheries, but not much more than that. Now, I think what is important to note is that seabed mining has two very different levels of jurisdiction in the ocean. The first one is linked to activities within national jurisdiction in the continental shelf or extended continental shelf of one coastal country. That's under national sovereignty. So it's for the country to decide if we explore and exploit the resource. In the what is called the area, which is areas beyond national jurisdiction, in the sea floor, this is common patrimony of humanity, so it is subject to administration by the International Seabed Authority, which was created by the UN Close Convention, the Convention of the Law of the Sea. And this authority is the one that has so far granted exploration contracts to check if there are reserves or there is any interest. They have issued 31 so far. And there are some companies, sponsored by countries because companies cannot do it alone, have expressed interest in doing some requests for exploitation, for extraction. That has not happened, and the International Seabed Authority is right now in the process of developing guidelines, a mining code on how that will happen. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Are we ready first? Even if some want to go there, in regulatory terms, the mining code is not there in the high seas. In terms of countries, only a few countries have regulations on seabed mining, mainly Japan, Norway, and New Zealand. Very few. As you can see, we're far from consensus on that. Nevertheless, some countries can go ahead and do it alone, in their own areas of jurisdiction. So this may happen first. They could be processes to do it in the high seas, but I think in practice it will happen first. And in terms of political interests, there are also many countries that are not in favor of doing sea mining at all. There are about 28. For example, France has a full ban on seabed mining within their areas of jurisdiction. So it's still a very controversial issue and far from consensus. Now, towards the future, whether at the national level or whether in the drafting of the mining code of the International Seabed Authority, I think we need certain regulatory aspects to be considered by member states. Number one, precaution. You need to be careful. Better to be safe than be sorry, and act with caution. Try to have the science first. Second, even if you go forward, you need to explore and to do impact assessments of what will be the expected impact of the economic activity. And again, that will lead you to what will be the mitigations measures you can take. You can also, I think, include within these regulations a polluter pay principle. Whoever damaged the ecosystem have to pay for it. So if you're going to get benefit, you need to also compensate for any damage. Some have called to include in the International Seabed Authority mining code damage fund in case the ecosystems are destroyed or affected, that companies or countries who are engaged in this in the high seas will have to deposit kind of an insurance policy in case something goes wrong. Also in the high seas, rules on benefit sharing are needed because this is common patrimony of humanity. So if you are profiting from the activity, who are the owners, of those resources? Nations, states, So there is a need for a benefit sharing. And I think there is an important principle that we could add also, which is that whoever is going to do that in terms of exploitation or extraction, it should be done with the less intrusive, harmful technologies. I don't think it's time to start mining the seabed I think it may be very dangerous. We need to be very cautious. And I think if that activity will take place in the future, even if it's a growing demand, we need to test many solutions before. For example, inland, even if the resources are limited, you can always apply recycling and circular economy policies by which you reuse and reuse a number of times metals. And in the case of metals, that can be done not ad infinitum, but in significant number of times. So I think there are other ways to do it before going into seabed mining.
It seems to me that it is basically like a new frontier of exploration. Is that what you would say? You know, like we've traveled to the moon. It's the work that we need to do, sort of.
It is obviously a new frontier, and it's interesting when you say the metaphor of the moon, because we know better the moon surface than the seabed. We have less knowledge of the seabed than of the face of the moon. And that tells you a lot, you know. But I think the question is if we are ready for starting understanding how this would happen, how this could happen. Because everybody thinks that seabed mining is one activity. There are several types of seabed mining. Not all are the same. One, for example, is what is called polymetallic nodules, that are nodules of about 10 to 20 centimeters of high concentration of different metals that are found on the seafloor. They can be hoovered, obtained by different ways. There are also significant reserves of cobalt, copper, nickel, iron, manganese in the seafloor crust. But for those, you have to excavate, you have to drill with higher impact. So not all seabed mining is the same. So even in that sense, I don't think we are ready yet. I think we may be creating more environmental problems than environmental solutions in this case, at least at this stage. The science is incipient in understanding marine life and understanding marine ecosystems. It's very incipient in terms of understanding the impact of any of these activities in the seafloor, and they could be significant challenges. By doing seabed mining, you may destroy complete ecosystems that are found in the seafloor.
Right. Well, David, thank you so much for breaking that down for us. That was David Vivas from UNCTAD and Development, who was this week's guest. Tune into the Weekly Tradecast next week and every week for more insights on the most pressing issues around the world of trade and development. And there's even more on our website, UNCTAD.org. I'm Sarah Toms in Geneva. Goodbye for now.